Call the meeting to order. Let's rise and give the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to start off with a motion to accept the minutes of October 11th.
So moved.
Second, thank you. Is there, before I ask if there's any discussion, I want to make sure that as chair, I do not want to have ever to spend 45 minutes parsing minutes again. It's a waste of time, and it's a waste of the taxpayer. It's not benefiting the taxpayers and the voters in this, in our communities. So it's absolutely not something. What I'd suggest is that anybody who has something that they want to amend that says something that they said, and there are no quotes in here, but got the whole gist wrong, please provide that. Otherwise, don't try and amend anybody else's stuff. Does anybody have any amendments? Yes, Cheryl.
On page 1.
Yes?
After the Pledge of Allegiance, acceptance of the minutes, after extensive discussion lasting about 45 minutes, I'd like to suggest we strike that because it's not relevant.
Well, I'm afraid that I disagree. I don't know how the rest of you feel.
Is that a motion?
Oh, it's a.
Well, if we're going to amend the minutes, it should be done by motion.
Do you have an amendment for the minutes?
Do I have to move everything?
Yep.
Apparently.
Okay. I thought we were in discussion. We moved to accept the minutes, and then we discussed.
Do you have a motion to delete those?
We have a motion on the floor to accept the minutes.
We do. She wants to amend the minutes.
In that case, our motion would be to amend it would be an amendment to the motion.
We have never done it like that before.
We've never spent 45 minutes on them either.
And I watched the tape, and the tape has time on it. So this is inaccurate. So I would like to strike it for being inaccurate.
What is your accurate number?
I don't think it's relevant to the minutes.
Okay.
The minutes were,
there's a motion that's been made to amend the minutes. Is there a second for that motion? There being none, let's move on. Do you have anything else?
Do I have, so every little thing here, I have to make a motion for every.
Are there every little thing? I mean, how many things do you have?
We have never done this before, Annie. I don't understand why.
We have not, and I am not going to have this parsing.
All right, so I will tell you what the exact amount is. It was 19 minutes.
No, it wasn't.
Did you watch, and did you time it like I did last night?
I'm not going to get into an argument with you. Your
well, then why?
Your motion to amend the minutes is denied. It is passed. It was not seconded. It's over. Please move on.
We have never amended minutes like this
Please
before.
Move on, Cheryl. Do you have something else?
Yes. Mr. Doggett stated.
You're not going to correct anything that somebody else said.
And I watched the tape.
You're only correcting things that you said, please. If he has a correction for something that he said, he can correct that.
Okay, I was present in the meeting when one of the members agreed that amendments that are made to minutes should be noted and put into an appendix.
That wasn't voted on, and it is not something that I chose to do as the volunteer who was doing the minutes, so it wasn't done, and it won't be done until we have a paid person, and then we can vote on whether we're going to do that. I know that was an opinion that was expressed. However, I disagree.
Okay, I'd like to make another motion to amend page 2. The master schedule shows 136 out of 262 classes. I watched on the tape.
Wait a minute, that's the motion. The discussion will come after the motion.
Your motion is 136 out of 262, and your motion is what?
That was corrected in the meeting by Mr. Ambrose, who said it was 100, not 136. And when we discussed minutes last time, we said if things were corrected during the meeting, they should be reflected in the minutes.
Okay. Does it say, did I not say that it was 136? 136 with 19 or fewer students. 19 or fewer. And you're right, it should be 130, that was correct. That was correct. I'll
So did
second
you
that.
second my motion?
I second
So
that
now
one.
we have to all vote on that?
Is everybody in favor of that motion?
Yes.
So it
That would be-
changed
I'm
from
sorry.
136 out of 262 to 100 out of 262?
For 19 and under, yes. Yep, that was right, because we got that second amended schedule that corrected that number. It had originally been stated at 15, but it was 19.
Yes.
Thank you. Is there anything else?
Yes, in that same paragraph, Mr. Ambrose will be bringing Mr. Stack to the first joint meeting in November.
You don't need to read it, just what is your amendment,
Where
please?
are we?
Agreed. We did not agree, there was no motion made to agree that we want an explanation, not a sales job. That was the opinion of Mr. Swayze and Ms. Collier. So I would like to just strike the word agree and put the committee wants an explanation of the master schedule.
Okay, there's a motion to change agree to want. Is there a second? Okay, pass. Is there anything else?
Let's see, last page. No, that's it.
Thank you. Okay, so as amended?
Just for the record, may
Yes.
I just recap and say that
Yes.
for the minutes from last week, October the 11th, everyone here agreed that we should change the number of classes with 19 and fewer students from 136 out of 262 to 100 out of 262.
That's correct.
And everybody, it was unanimous that we
Yes.
will accept that change.
That's right, except for Jack, who didn't vote on it because he
Jack-
wasn't here.
Jack
There was one
abstained.
abstention.
Thank you. I'm glad I asked, because
Yeah, no, that's great. Okay, so the motion on the floor is to accept the minutes as amended.
There was one other one? Did you get the other one about changing the committee? Agreed to
That
just say
that
one?
was not a seconded motion, so it's gone.
about the,
It's gone.
Mr.
That
Stack-
motion, that
right.
motion's not in effect.
it didn't have a second, so it was not.
We have never done this. This is not done like this in the
Excuse
school
me,
board.
we're having a vote. Could we vote to approve the minutes as amended? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and Jack, you're abstaining?
Yes.
So that would be,
I am also abstaining.
oh, okay.
Didn't
Oh,
ask for abstention, so.
Oh, sorry, okay. Any nays? Any abstentions? There are two abstentions. That's Jack and Cheryl. Okay, moving on. Chairman comments, I don't really have any, so we can table that one. The next one is the contract recommendations to the school board. Larry, yes?
Can I make a statement before we start this? So
Yes.
that we have a even playing field here? Essentially, what I'm asking for is your ideas and comments that we can put in with the mix that we've got from the Lord knows where. But I want to make sure that you all realize that because you tell me this, does not mean that it's going to end up in the contract.
Oh, we know that.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
We're not,
I had one person sit there and tell me already, well, I told you that, why isn't it going to be in? Well,
No.
okay.
Got it.
No, you are the negotiating committee. We are not. You
Okay.
have asked us for our recommendations.
that's what I'm asking for.
Okay.
Would you do
Okay.
me one more favor? When you give me your comments, would you give me a reason why? It gives me a little bit more ammunition to play with.
Great, great. Okay, so how I'd like to handle this is, just a moment, please, Cheryl. How I'd like to handle this, if it's okay with everybody, is each one of us take a turn just to state what we think, go around the table, and then we can have a vote to see a motion to make a recommendation, and it will either pass or not, and then move on to the next thing. Is that
We
okay?
don't have to worry about it going to the school board because we're the negotiating committee. Aye.
Yeah, if the other member of the negotiating team for the school board has to be sitting in the
It's also on video.
in the gallery here.
Whatever you get from us tonight will be in writing.
Okay.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay, so the contract recommended to the school board, I do want to make one statement to kick it off, which is that I did some investigation into a variety of different contracts. I looked at 17 different ones that were in similar geographic districts. They were larger, they were Exeter, they were Timberlane, they were Nashua. I mean, and I posted those on there. What I was looking for initially and what's posted on our drive is the range of medical contributions that are done. And it went from 100% down to 78%. So there's a wide range and a lot of movement lower. Then I followed up on that later, and I started looking at some of the total package, which was the base pay with those, and I made a couple of assumptions. I made an assumption that the average, and I don't have this number, so I just made an assumption, that the average insurance premium per employee is $15,000 total. And I said, okay, so that means for every percent, that's $150. And what I did was to take and say 150 times 10 is $1,500, and just kind of match it up that way. When I did that, I found that our pay combination, just a moment, please, we're going to take turns.
I just have a point of order. Are we in the discussion portion of this now?
We are, that's what we just set up, is that we're going to take, but I'm speaking, so if you
Well,
hold on.
I'm going to recuse myself.
Very good.
Understood.
Okay, thank you. Yep. Yeah, Cheryl has a relative who's an employee who's, thank you, Cheryl.
And I'm sure
You're
Larry's not
welcome.
going to say much, because probably you shouldn't. Don't get accused. The last thing you need to do is get accused of some unfair labor practice.
Oh, yeah,
Jeez,
that's-
I'm not
Well,
telling
I
you.
That's why I
was
just
just
said
waiting,
you're right.
I was just trying to find out from Madam Chair when it would be appropriate for me to do this,
And
because
you did, and thank you.
it seemed
Okay.
like we were going into discussion even.
So that's what we
no.
had set up, yep. So basically what I'm finding is, and it needs a lot more digging, which I hope that the negotiating team, with the help of Ms. Croteau, will be doing, into what the whole package is. To me, I'd like you to look at the whole package, and when you present it, to present the whole package. And I wanted to go a step further and say that I'd like you to look at the whole package along with the budget, because that's the whole stuff that's going before the voters. So just want you to be cognizant of all of that. So those were my comments. Why don't we just go around the table?
When you say entire package, you're talking about the entire compensation.
Yes, yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Jim?
I have some concerns. When it comes to the insurance package, not only the percentage, because I know the town of Newton only pays 75%. The town of Kingston pays 75%. But a big thing is the deductible. Deductibles nowadays can range between $5,000 and $10,000. If the teacher package, I don't know what the yellow and orange plans are, but if they are $500 deductible, that's a major asset that we're handing, that they're getting. That, I mean, I look at the other public employees in the towns that Sanborn serves, and they're paying substantially higher amounts. And I believe that, it's fair. We need to bring things fair and equitable. It's not just what it is compared to Timberlane or Exeter, which are maybe larger pools, but the town of Newton is not going to be looking at increasing its percentage of contribution. I doubt Kingston is. I mean, Kingston has an odd little formula, but with some fairly substantial deductibles that. Plus, they don't have, I know that we have a health insurance savings account where each person can contribute up to $500 per year. Is that to cover their potential deductible, or is that just a sort of catch basin for people to be able to put in some pre-tax dollars to help offset? And my other thing is, and I've been hearing this for years, people out there are getting tired of hearing of annual pay raises that are step plus a percentage. And then people focus on the percentage, and as if the step, which is the average step is 3.5%, at least it always has been on the matrix, that's a given, that you're automatically getting 3.5%, and you're getting a chunk over that, which is what everybody, bandies about, oh, it's only a 2% pay raise. That step is, 3.5%, that's a big step. I just redid the Newton Town matrix, and their steps for the first 10 years are 2.5%, and after 10 years, they go to 2%, and in year 15, they go to 1.5%.
Okay. Okay, so can I give you just feedback what I'm hearing from you? Is that you really want it looked at as, I'm saying, look at the total package versus other districts. You're saying also look at it versus the town.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's
yeah.
important, because people in my town hall, when they hear every time what the teacher contract contains, they're looking at us going, why can't we have this good one?
Okay, and I also hear you saying that you're looking for full disclosure when it's presented
Exactly.
about what the increases are.
Right.
Yeah, okay, and how they break out. Okay, great, thank you. Jack?
Yes, I agree with Jim, but there's 2 points that I want to make out there, Jim. The town of Kingston, I understand, has a $5,000 deductible. And how that medical account works, as far as I know, because my wife had one, which her last job before she retired, you put X amount of money, and I don't know if there's a cap or not, but that money's got to be used within that calendar year. If it's not used, you lose it. So if you want it for, you can pay, I think you could pay dental bills, doctor bills, or anything like that. But once it,
I believe ours.
Let's not talk to each other, but talk to the public.
I'm just trying to speak. But I agree with most of the things Jim said. I'd like to see it, both towns pay 75%. I think we need to get the teachers, and not just this school district, I think other school districts, to what's really going on in the real world. And people are paying a heck of a lot more for health insurance. And under Obamacare in the last couple of years, costs have skyrocketed. And, so that's my comment. That's always been my concern about health care. And I think so. Thank you.
I have nothing new to add to the conversation right now.
Okay. Sandy?
I am concerned about the steps and the steps that have been lost through all the default budgets. I'm not an expert in this field, but I do feel like we should look and see how inequitable it has become because of that culture that was occurring for quite a few years. So I'm hoping that that will be addressed by the negotiations committee and some sort of collaboration between the two parties to address that.
Okay, great. So I've written that down.
May I just clarify? You're worried about steps and the steps lost through failed contracts and being able to recoup?
Something.
Okay. Thank you.
Charlton?
Yep. Just making a note. I have prepared a letter for us to work off of.
Okay.
Because I want us to leave here with an agreement on what we're going to send to the school board. And put that plus my thoughts in it.
Thank you.
Well, I guess I made just enough, so I can do mine from memory.
You can look at mine.
I wrote it, so I can't remember what's in there. I agree with Annie, because it's one of the things as an attorney that I remember always having to talk to clients about, is that any contract negotiations and settlements are global. That's why I always call them global. We especially got into this in divorces, is that, yeah, because you got the rocking chair, you may have to give the rocking chair up later because if you want the couch, okay? So these are global. They're the terms, and they're not necessarily individual. They are individual, but they all got to be fit together. You give some, you get some, you get something back, and you give something back again, whatever. So I agree with you there. I'm going to address what Sandy said last. She said it last, but first. I understand the lost steps, but I think the union's got to realize that they got some big responsibility in the field contracts. I'm not arguing with you, Sandy, but yeah, when they put unreasonable contracts forward for the voters to approve, they lose it. Well, you took that risk, you rolled that dice, and you lost. And it's not up for us taxpayers to make up for your past mistakes. So I too disagree with that. The pay raise issue. Jim's, and I think everybody really needs to understand this pay raise issue, which Jim's brought up. It is a complete fallacy that the teachers do not get a pay raise. They get a.
It isn't just, but it isn't just the teachers. Just so we know, these are 3 contracts that are being done.
I'm talking about the steps.
Okay.
Everybody gets a step increase every year. They get a raise every year. This is a unionized contract. It's not driven, your raise is not driven by your performance. It's driven by the fact that you've been employed for a year. So that is a complete fallacy that keeps getting put out there. And I'm going to use a little stronger than what Jim said. That people say, well, they're only getting a 2% raise on this contract. No, they're getting a 5.5% increase, and they do get a raise every year. So as you factor in these contracts and what they involve monetarily, it's the step plus the percentage. And I don't. How did I word that? I think a contract that's an ongoing step plus a percentage is excessive. And I feel that 1 step per year over the life of the contract is fair and adequate. So if somebody's on step 3, the contract says, we're going to bring you right now up to 4. Okay, next year you'll be at 5. So you're just pushing them ahead a little. I think that's fair. The health insurance issue. It's for everybody in society. It's a big issue. We are paying 90% of the healthcare costs. And we never did find out what the deductibles are, did we?
Do you know the deductible on the policies? So we don't know.
We don't know.
Okay.
Okay, so.
But you want that looked at?
Yeah, I want that looked at. I mean, because that's
certainly provide that information.
That's part of the big puzzle here is in anybody's health plan is what you have for what you pay for coverage and what you have for deductible. I know my wife's situation last year, it's a problem. Her company went to the employees and said, and just honest with them, said, look, this is what we got. And they were aghast at what it was costing the company. So the employees came in and they said, what they did in this case, not that Sanborn's going to do this, but they said, we'll take a huge deductible if you keep your percentage up. So that's how they compromise that. So it's the deductibles, Larry, are really a real part of the cost. Okay, if we pay 90% and they're paying $5,000, yeah, maybe that's okay. But if we're paying 90% and they're paying $500, that's not okay. That's not okay. I think, and I did some research too. I think that school districts comprised of the towns of Kingston and Newton, and I agree with Jack, and I think Jim said that we should be in line with what we pay our other public employees, 75% healthcare contribution, and and I can't get into the deductibles because we don't know what they are, but I think it should be 75, 25.
Okay.
Now, how they get there, whether it's a one-time thing or over the 2 years of the contract, however, that's what it should end up at. It's just the way society is today. It's where we're moving. We can't afford it. Taxpayers can't afford it. We're struggling with our own health care costs.
Larry, did you have anything that you wanted to say on this, or you're just
I'm just
absorbing?
being quiet.
Okay, and Cheryl's not in. Does anybody have any kind of further comments, having heard each other, that you want to say? And yeah.
Oh, just a couple of other things that are definitely non-starters. No evergreen clauses in.
Oh, geez, yeah.
And this year, there's a new. When I was thinking, when you asked our input, when it comes to like the administrative contract, PDAs, travel expenses, things like that are gonna be not just killers for me, but when if it gets put out there, because, and that's the other thing, is we have to go back to, instead of getting a cheat sheet at the end of the year saying, yeah, there was a change to paragraph 5.1, we need full copies of the contract so that we can read through and see how the changes interact with the pre-existing language. The last time, we literally got a one-page sheet that said what the changes were, what the actual verbiage changes were, without any relation, and we were handed that at a meeting and told we had to vote by the end of the meeting.
And that we couldn't vote again later.
Exactly. I mean,
I was at that meeting.
that whole aspect.
That was cute.
That was
That whole
crazy.
aspect has to go away.
Okay, does anybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd forgotten about the evergreen clause, because I thought that was just dead, but absolutely,
Yeah.
that's gotta be dead.
Does anybody have anything
When you,
else? Mary?
when you say PDA, you're talking about personal device, what is that? Like phone reimbursement and things like that?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody have anything further? I have some more comments, but do you have anything? Go ahead. Okay. First of all, I think that I disagree with you on the travel and the PDA. First of all, I think that to put in vouchers and have somebody kind of keeping track of every mile that Steve Riley takes from place to place is probably going to cost an employee a lot of hours. And so I don't think it's a very efficient use of taxpayer monies. I think that it's a cheaper thing for the taxpayers to just say, here it is, and don't ask me for anything more, because here you've got it. That's my opinion. I understand that it may not be shared. I do think that the full disclosure that several here have talked about is important when it's presented. And I think several have talked about various things that we want you to look at as far as percentages and the total package. You know, one of the things that I was astonished to find when I did the research I did, which is very base level, it isn't the extent that you're going to go through, but I found we pay our teachers less, but we give them higher rewards. And it balances out so that they're actually getting paid right about what everybody else is on average. So I was really amazed to find that. I mean, it's not that our teachers are so underpaid. And they teach smaller classes. So, you know, the reward system isn't bad.
When you talk about the reward system, for the record, you're talking about total compensation.
Total compensation package, benefits plus salary. Yeah, and comparing benefits plus salary when you're making these comparisons. So there were a couple of other things that I wanted to throw out that I'd really like to see, and I don't know how all of you feel about it. I would really like to give the school board and the superintendent the ability to give a merit bonus, which would be a one-time merit bonus. It is in the Exeter agreement and a couple of others I saw, and it would be possibly a really good way to reward incredible service to the district. A second thing on the other side is I'd like to give an ability to fire teachers who have been on 2 PIPs and who are then entering into a third one.
What's a PIP?
PIP is a performance improvement program, and if there's a teacher, and I don't know if there are any in the district who've done this, but I know employees who have done this. They go into a performance improvement program because they're doing less than they should, and then they do a little bit better and they get out of it, and then they go back into it because they fall short, and then they get out of it. I think third strike and you're out. You get into a third PIP and, that's a cause to be fired and replaced. We don't need teachers who are doing bare minimum on a job. And that's what the PIPs show.
When you
Yes.
suggest a third PIP, are you talking lifetime employment? Are you talking within a particular time period?
No, I'm talking lifetime. And the third thing that I'd like to see is I'd like to see some step flexibility put in. And this, again, is something that I found in a couple of the contracts. Exeter, for instance, has this where they have the superintendent and the school board have the freedom to give someone a higher step than they would have gotten by their employment history. For instance, if somebody's coming in out of business And say you have a vocational education person who is coming in and going to train on welding, and he's spent his years welding, and now he wants to teach. And he's probably extremely qualified. And should he really be a step one because it's his first job in the teaching industry? I think there has to be some flexibility that way. And I think that would also benefit some of the hard to fill, high demand jobs in the STEM field. So those were my comments. Wait a minute, I think Sandy had something else.
So regarding the insurance and the being equitable with the towns, I could not support that moving from 90 to 75 in a contract is going to be very beneficial for us. So I do think that we need to look at those numbers and that balance between, I know it's different for staff than it is for the professional guild, but we can look at those numbers, and the district can run those numbers as to what kind of a difference it would make based on the step and percentage increases. But perhaps I know some districts give 89% or 88%. And so at least that would be a step in the right direction.
Maybe. Because if it's being replaced, if you say, okay, you're going to have to pay $150 more for your insurance, and we're going to give you $150 more in the base pay, then we're also paying benefits, FICA, and everything else on that $150.
Sure.
So again, you have to look at the whole package to see what the cost is to the district in these things. Did you have something else? I'm sorry, I thought.
No, you'll figure.
Okay.
I just want to add something.
Oh, yes, Jim had his hand, I
Just a
apologize.
couple of comments regarding the travel. When it comes to administrative travel, there's no way of putting equity and parity into a travel stipend that is part of a contract. Mr. Riley should be driving a district vehicle, in which case he should not be paid for any mileage that happens in district. However, the difference between somebody who works in this building and going to a superintendent's meeting and somebody that works at the middle school and going to a superintendent's meeting have major differences in travel. As far as merit, in order to institute merit, you have to institute criteria for what is meritorious.
Oh, yeah. Yep, good.
And the school board for years has tried and failed to come up with something like that. The other thing is, especially as we see major increases in professional development expenditures in the school district, that professional development is an asset that we are giving to every teacher. And therefore, I mean, as we spend more and more on professional development, the value of that professional development has to be considered a benefit for teachers. Because if you come here and for 3 years you attend professional development to improve your teaching ability, it improves your ability and makes you more valuable when you go to another school district.
Okay.
And
Also within ours, presumably.
It is, however, we're starting to look at major money that's going into professional development. And it would be nice to be able to correlate directly to educational improvements, but there's no way of doing that. It's just like how if we pay Mr. Swayze to go and get his Master's of History teaching, yet they have to stay so long afterwards in order to not have to reimburse us for that. Maybe we should do it on professional development also, because we're starting to spend large amounts of money on people.
Okay, got it. One of the questions I guess that raises is with the professional development, like sending the teachers to Columbia, is that credited as, training that is equivalent to taking a course in college, and does it kind of increase their step? Is it part of the 15 to get to the next level? Or I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. So I don't know if that's an actual, step increase or moving across the grid.
Well, no, professional development isn't going to move you on the matrix. Professional development is going to increase your saleable skills or marketable skills.
Okay.
However, it's an investment in teachers that I believe we have 147 teachers. We were looking at spending $90,000 last year. You know, when you do the math, okay, we're spending, you know, $500 per teacher. As that number goes up, we're investing substantial money into professional development and our teaching staff, that if they walk away from Sanborn, they take those abilities with them.
Okay. Yes, Charlton.
Jim's right. I'm not telling you how to negotiate, but he's right. That's a very good point. I hadn't thought of that. That is a benefit. It's hard to put a monetary value on it, but it is a benefit that the employees are now getting. Mm-hmm. The travel thing, you know, Annie, I disagree with you. You know, I've disagreed a long time. There are a lot of bigger companies and more complex companies that make people do vouchers for their travel and expenses. I think the school district has always dug its heels in. Oh, it's too hard. It takes too much time. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. It's the easiest thing to do in the world with a form. Everything's done on the computer now. It's so easy to make a request that I traveled to Concord on Wednesday to attend a seminar, and my mileage was 58 miles. I mean, that's so simple. And the only time you have to really spend any time on it is if you start seeing a problem. So I think it ought to be on a voucher system. I've thought of it for a long time, and I think that ought to be addressed in the contract. I'm not.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I agree with what Annie was talking about that merit award. I think that's certainly worth something to look at. A step flexibility is something to look at. I don't know if you'll ever get the unions to agree to this, but I think it's worth looking at. I think that it would be nice to be able to award somebody something for better behavior than just showing up for a year. And that, you know, and to try and get some qualified people in. I mean, I could come in and do stuff, but I'm not coming in here and doing it for $100. You know, I'm just not. Right. I like I haven't heard it the first time I've heard it, this PIP situation. There should be a way to move.
I haven't found that in any other contracts, by the way.
What?
The PIP thing.
Oh, okay. Well, I think it's worth exploring, and there ought to be a way to move out employees.
I would think the union would be happy to have inadequate teachers.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Charlie,
just make sure I'm covered everything I wanted to cover. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
In the scenario that you gave about, you know, somebody that came in who has many years of experience, there's no requirement that somebody start at step 1.
Correct. Or 3 or whatever it is.
Exactly. That is completely the school board or the administrator that's proposing a hiring can suggest a step based on experience. And actually there is a formula, or there always was a formula in the contract, that
I don't believe there is one now.
For every year that you were a teacher somewhere else, you got
credit.
Exactly, and then it was like they subtracted 2. But if you were, you know, actually everybody has to be high quality teachers.
Yes, they do.
You know, there is no requirement that somebody coming in starts on, you know, grade 1, step 1 of the major.
That's from teaching, but the thing is, from other industries or in a high demand subject area like math or science, which are very hard to fill, to give some flexibility to be able to say, and also require a lot more time in classrooms and things like that than many of the other education. And this is going on in other districts. To be able to do that, we need to compete.
Yeah.
So, yes, Mary.
I would like to restate the obvious, just for the record. There's an opportunity cost for the high turnover that we've experienced as a district. We get these energetic, vibrant, state-of-the-art teachers in here. And, you know, we spend, I don't know what, there was a number thrown around last year, I don't know how many, that $10,000 or
It
whatever.
hasn't been verified
To
when I've
get
asked.
them up to speed.
It wasn't, I'm sorry, it wasn't last year's number, it was the prior administration, and there was no backup for it, and I haven't been able
But
to
we
get
know,
that.
we do know that there is a cost
But the
to,
current administration wasn't able to put any kind of, they haven't been able to put a number like that on it.
but to get a new employee in here, and to get them matriculated, and to get them vested and up and running efficiently, and you need to consider the fact that if we're not compensating them comparably, if we're not being competitive in the market, that we are going to turn those people over. So like anything, it's a balance and it's a dance, but I urge you to keep that in mind. Again, stating the obvious, it's always been a concern, but let's not, throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing.
Sandy?
Just going back to the tuition reimbursement, I know that's a huge number of money that's available for professional staff and even for parents, I think. Believe there's some sort of compensation in the staff contract, that agreement as well. I would ask you to find out, surely we can have the numbers of how many people access that fund, how long it lasted. I mean, tuition's not cheap these days, especially if you're trying to get yourself to the master's level, because then you just make more money, or master's, bachelor's plus 15, or master's plus 30, or, bachelor's plus 30, all those different formulas for your level of education. So I'd be curious for you folks to look at those numbers, and was the entire fund spent? That's been done many times, but how many people actually access that? And what was the result of that? Did it bump them up? And what was that increased cost to the district when it automatically moved them from here to here with a significant, a healthy increase anyway? That's why they do it, of course.
Okay, so we have an awful lot of ideas. Yes, Charles?
I'm going to make a motion, unless you want to say something.
Well, I was going to say
Go
that,
ahead.
is there a motion?
Yeah.
I was going to say we have an awful lot. I don't know what common ground we have.
I'm going to make a motion that we adopt the letter that I've handed out to be signed and presented to the school board. And I know it's going to get amended, but let's give us something to work off of. So when we leave here tonight, everybody's on the same page.
I'll second that.
Okay. So there's a motion on the floor. Discussion. I think that, personally, I don't have a problem with the first one. The second paragraph here, I can't agree to just say that we want an insurance apportionment of 75% and 25% employee. I just think it has to be a total package, so I can't agree with that statement. It could be that moving down is in the interest of the district, and having a higher percentage from the employees. It could be that not giving them quite as much money is a better alternative. I just don't know the answers. I'd like the negotiating team to look at that and come up with the answers. I don't know how the rest of you feel.
I agree with that. I think that I want it to be looked at, because of going from 90 to 75 is significant, particularly for staff. It's not easy for teachers either. I'm not saying that at all. But I would like the number to be looked at, because it's when all of the dust settles, when all the verbiage has been changed in a contract, then you get down to the money. And we have to look at the money for steps, the money for increases, how many years is it, what's the cost to the taxpayer? And the things that are involved in that are the health insurance and step increases,
If it were to go from 90 down to 75, and the base pay were raised to compensate for that,
commensurately.
commensurately, so say it's approximate additional cost. No, this is one of the things.
I'm not interrupting you. I'm shaking my head.
I understand you're not. I mean, basically, it's a pay cut of about $2,000 plus to the employees. So, that seems to me not okay. I'm not okay with that. I'm just not. If there's some sort of stepping in with something where it's gradual and moving in that direction, and, you know, then I think, then I'm okay with it, but I'm not okay with a big jump. Yeah.
My interpretation is this, and hopefully it's going to be a 3-year contract. If the district reduced each year of the contract, their apportionment by 5% over 3 years, that would bring you to 75%. During that time, even if they only received a step increase, all teachers would be receiving an average a 10.5% pay increase. 10.5% pay increase is a lot higher than the insurance reduction.
Okay, so the average pay is, I'm just trying to.
Is in the low 60s.
Okay, so let's say it's 60,000,
Okay.
and then,
I said,
62,
Right.
what number do you want?
No,
Okay.
go with 60,000.
Okay,
If it's
so-
60,000, that means that over the life of the contract, they would pick up
$6,000?
$6,250.
Actually, they get it incrementally, one on top of another. Yeah, right.
I'm going with simple math.
Okay. And
During that time, their insurance contributions might increase by $2,000. That means that cash, they are increasing their take-home, actually, their before-tax amount would be increased by $4,000 over 3 years. So, I mean, it's, you know, problem is that when you look at percentages, you have to look at the base numbers the percentages are based on. You know, them picking up 15% of a $10,000 insurance policy is much different from their earning an additional 10.5% of a $60,000 base salary.
Okay. So can I ask for a straw vote just on the?
Well, I haven't had a chance to address this myself
Oh, yeah,
yet.
okay, sorry.
Okay. I think what Jim's saying, it looks, oh, wow, 75%. It's only a 15% change. They're already paying 10. It's only 15% in however you get there. And I think if we go wishy-washy, I understand you wanted to look at it. But if we don't send them, whoever them may be, a strong message, this is what we want, they're gonna say, well, we looked at it, yeah, we thought about it, and when it ends up over here, and it doesn't get approved, and you know what else this does? Not just because I authored it, but something like this gives him tremendous leverage in negotiations. Believe me, I know. It gives him tremendous leverage. And he can go in there and say, this is what the budget committee's saying. They're going to vote on this. This is going on the ballot. You push us here. There's going to be a no vote from them, and they do carry some weight. I think just look at it, think about it, you play into the hands of the union. That's my opinion. That's just my opinion.
So at this point, what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask the budget committee members to vote on whether they want this 75% down and 25% language in a letter to the school board. All in favor? And this isn't, it's not a binding vote. And opposed? Okay, so it's split.
Are you calling for abstentions?
Pardon me?
Are you
Oh, no,
calling-
you've already recused from this whole thing.
Okay.
And it's just basically a thumbs up, thumbs down vote. This wasn't a motion or anything. But
So-
just giving you a sense that there's division on
Well,
this.
let's see if we can agree on something.
Okay. Yeah,
What's a compromise?
Exactly.
What's a compromise?
yeah. I'd like to just say insurance costs have substantial budgetary impact, so do all other benefits, so do salaries. I'd like you to look at it as a total package and exercise restraint, and define restraint. I don't know, I mean, that's where,
I know
that's wishy-washy, I get it.
It is
So-
terribly
so-
wishy-washy,
so
and that's
get it-
exactly
go
what the
further.
union wants you to do.
Well, I don't,
They want you to wish-wash, and then,
could be.
how about if we agree to, So we agreed to 75-20?
I mean,
Get
first
to
of all,
75% over the term, at the end of the contract term.
we don't even know, we don't even know if it's going to be a 3-year term or
I
a
know.
2-year term or a 1-year term.
I know.
I mean, we don't know, you
I
know,
know that.
so we don't know what they're going to be doing this year. So it's kind of hard to say that,
Why not?
Well, in that case, we could change that to 5% per year.
okay?
Yeah,
How do you feel about 5% per year?
5% per year, if it's 2 years, 10 plus 10, now we're at 20. I could live with that.
Yeah. Well, that way, there's a max, they can see a maximum increase in their insurance premium compared to a specific salary increase.
Yeah, I want to say something else too here, and I think Jim's going to echo this. I got nothing against teachers, administrators, but they're no less important to this community, no less vital, and no less to be rewarded than the town employees, i.e. firemen, policemen, and the workers. So that's why I want to see them on the same playing field. So
No, I get it, I get it. And-
I'd agree to
Jim, did you make a
5%
motion,
per year.
5% per year? Because we voted on the.
Right.
Well, we haven't really voted, we still
we
have,
just-
we still have this as a
straw poll.
proposal of
Thank
kind of,
These are straw polls.
Thank you.
yeah.
I just threw that out there. I mean, we could actually put in here language, you know, that we would like to see a 5% annual increase to the insurance contribution until a 75-25 match is
Match.
achieved.
Aiming towards that over time.
Right.
And do you want to mention the equity with the towns which the district serves?
I'm sure that the union will be watching this closely.
Use words like parity and equity and balance and all those things.
So you got some language, quick language?
It does feel kind of weird since we don't know the deductibles.
Yeah, I know,
you
that's
Is it $5,000? I know that
That's,
I've had some training on this and some of these the orange and the yellow and the green plans, and they all have a different deductible. Do you know what our district is offering?
No, we talked about that earlier, and so I do not have that.
Yeah.
this time.
So, I mean, it's very
Off the
hard
top
to
of my
be
head.
very specific with these numbers.
It is.
I mean, it really is. I think you're getting the sense that insurance is a hot button. And the insurance coverage is a hot button. And the other sense I'd like to present is that full disclosure is a hot button that's come up here several times. And can I say that looking at the total compensation package is also something that we want? Or is that not, I mean, can we have a thumbs up or thumbs down on the total?
let's do one at a time.
Okay, okay,
Can we do one at a time?
all right, well,
Still on this motion.
I was,
Okay, regarding the insurance, it could say, we feel that insurance apportionment increase of 5% per year over the life of the contract, we feel to be fair and appropriate. So we'll have them scared if they want to propose a 4-year contract.
I'm okay with that. It's a good compromise.
I don't feel I have enough information. I understand it's a compromise, but I don't know what the deductibles are. I
We're not
I just
putting
don't
this
have
off.
enough. Yeah.
Well, I'm not putting this off. We can't put it off. We were told we can't put this off.
Okay, so this is, whatever we advise is not
Just
going
an
to be, yeah, it's
What
just
happens?
advice.
It is.
It's
no,
not binding.
It's not binding.
So that would express the intent of
Right.
the board? Is that are we ready to vote on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if nothing else, we need to send them a message that
Yeah.
insurance is a tough issue.
Okay,
And we do need to mention the towns, absolutely. I
Okay.
completely agree with you, because
This would,
the question would be, on what basis
Jim?
is this, other than it's a budgetary item?
so you can add to that sentence that this would bring this more in line with what's being paid to the town employees, contributions for town employees.
For Kingston and
Does
Newton.
that sound? Okay. I'm okay with that.
okay,
So-
all right. Is everybody, I get the sense everybody's comfortable, is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so then the next paragraph is, as regards any pay raises contained in this contract, an ongoing step plus a percentage is excessive. we feel that one step per year over the life of the contract is fair and adequate. Okay, so you're saying you want to restrict it to the 3.5% step and not add on an additional cost of living.
They get a bump every year. Just to get an extra step. Extra 3.5%.
The step is for the year, and the percent is for,
Cost of living.
yep.
It's a raise.
It's standard in the industry.
I want us to be able to be competitive. I can't agree with this.
Well, let's talk about competitiveness. Until you get rid of the teachers' unions, you're not going to be competitive any. I think this is a fallacy that, and I guess that's my word tonight. It's another fallacy that we fall into. The unions are the ones that are causing this problem. Okay?
Okay?
And you can't be competitive. You can't be competitive in the legal business, the engineering business, or even the medical business unless you can say, wow, Charlton's a heart surgeon, and we want him out in Denver, Colorado, and we're going to pay him to get him here. If you say to him, yeah, we're going to give you the same salary as Joe Schmo over there, and you say, I'm not going out there for that. That's the killing, and I'm tired of hearing this. We need to be competitive. You can't be competitive under these systems. The unions don't allow it to be competitive. They just don't. They don't. I mean, now if I got a PhD in history, I'm going to come here and teach for the guy that's been here 5 years and doesn't do much. Not.
Well, that's where that's where that step flexibility comes
Not
in.
happening. So that you.
Well,
Yes, Jim.
If we could, if the board could come up with a definition and a procedure for meritorious increases, that would be different. However, I agree with Mr. Swayze that, quite frankly, the idea that if all of us have been here the same amount of time and are on the same step, it doesn't matter the quality. Why should I do more than I need to keep my job if all I'm getting is the same that somebody I see who's doing a poor quality job is getting paid? I mean, however, that merit needs to be defined by the school board and instituted as part of the contract.
Okay.
You can't just, it can't be out there as a nebulous.
I think that's great. So are you adding to this document?
Well, no, that's the
Rephrasing.
reason I like this. Okay, until the union and the school board and the teachers and all those people that are involved can get together and properly define merit.
I don't think that the teachers union would be the ones defining merit.
Oh, no, you definitely don't want that.
But if we say that we'd like to see a clearly defined merit possibility in the budget, would that cover it?
They won't agree to it.
I mean, we don't know what it's going to be till it comes back to us. But I mean, are we
they
giving
won't
them a
agree to-
sense of what we're talking about? I think
Annie,
Larry gets
they
it.
won't agree to it. That is a fundamental of unions that everybody gets paid the same.
Now, you know what? It's in a bunch of contracts. It isn't. It's in Exeter. It's in a bunch of other ones that I found.
Okay, let's address that too. Not everybody, and this is something else I'm tired of hearing. Not everybody's going to be able to go to Bedford, because if Bedford's such a great place, they're not going to have any openings. I mean, they're going to leave here and go to Bedford. They're going to leave here and go to Exeter. Well, it's such a great place, they won't have any openings, and not everybody in the state can go to Bedford and Exeter. Okay?
It isn't a matter of.
Yeah, that's why I'm here all the time. Oh, they're going to leave and go to Bedford. Okay.
Yes, Mary.
I just want to mention something that I discovered for the first time at last week's meeting, that our administrators, or many of them, are now unionized and have removed themselves from the opportunity to reap the benefit of a merit increase for the lemming average. So, this is what we're up against. The unions are not going away anytime
Yeah, but they're on the wrong side of history too.
soon. Well, I agree with you. I don't particularly care
Yeah.
for them, but they're here, and they're going to be negotiating shortly, so.
I would like to see us have language in here recommending a merit phrase, a clearly defined merit phrase. Is there objection to that? Are we in agreement with that? Can get some sort of thumbs up? Anybody think that that's a good idea?
You can put it in, sure.
Okay.
Yep.
So what's the wording? Jim's taking this down,
Clearly
I guess.
defined
Clearly defined
merit.
merit option.
Sure.
How about the ability to fire teachers on a 3-strike policy?
Quite honestly, now that the administration has unionized, you cannot have one union official overseeing the evaluation of another union.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, that's just, I mean,
Well, that's going to be something for the superintendent to have to sort out. But in the end, he's the one who would make the recommendation. And he has talked to every single teacher in the district. So, you know, I don't know what would happen or how it would happen, but I'd like to see the option that it be done in some way. I don't know the implementation. It could be impossible now, but I'd like to see that as a possibility.
This is our opportunity to
Give that input.
give you info.
So is it okay to put in a 3-strike policy? Is that okay with everybody? Does anybody have a problem?
Sure.
Okay, and then the other one was the step flexibility.
Sure.
step flexibility already exists.
I'm not sure it does in the contract, but I'd like to make sure it's there.
If it doesn't.
It
So what if it's
does
redundant?
by
It doesn't
policy.
matter.
It exists by policy.
Correct. That's true.
No,
Do we recommend it be there?
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, I would suggest not, because you don't want to put into a contract something that is already covered by policy. Because right at the moment.
How about if it's not covered by policy, we'd like it in there? How about that? Because we don't know if it is or not. I understand you think it is.
Allow me to finish
Okay.
my comment. The minute you put it into the contract, it becomes a future point for negotiation. However, if it's not in the contract, then the school board has the ability to say, okay, you're coming in, you know, we really, wow, you did this, we really want to start you on step 3. The minute you put into negotiable where people come in, then it becomes negotiable of, okay, we've just decided the union, either side, we're going to lop off the first 4 steps of the matrix. Everybody's going to start on level 4. It's just that you're adding an additional level of what would have to be negotiated.
Okay. So you'd rather see it as a policy?
Well, yeah.
You like it? You like having you'd like having step flexibility, but you'd like it to be a policy, not in the contract?
Right, and it always was because I wrote it.
Okay.
I mean, it may have disappeared over the years, but I specifically remember.
So basically, we'd like to see step flexibility in a policy. Is everybody in agreement with that?
Particularly in the,
Are you agreeing to this?
We're back on the pay raises with the ongoing step plus a percentage is excessive. We feel that 1 step per year over the life of the contract is fair and adequate.
Because if you're not agreeing to that, I'm not going to agree to these things that I just said yes to. I think you just kind of hoodwinked me a little bit. Yeah, can we agree to this, agree to this, agree to this, and you're not going to agree to that.
Okay, I'm not trying to hoodwink anybody, Charles.
I think that's kind of the way it went down.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so the ongoing, limiting it to step increases. What's your feeling on that?
I want in that same sentence, the merit statement that you made, in that same sentence.
Okay.
With the opportunity.
With the opportunity for merit compensation.
Oh, I like that.
Can you write that out exactly?
Well, what did you say earlier? Because I was modifying it just a little bit.
Because we got to do this tonight. We can't circulate this.
Defined
Clearly
merits.
defined.
Clearly defined merit opportunities.
Thank you.
Merit system.
Clearly defined opportunities for merit pay or
Yeah.
merit.
But now the merit, as it's being done, just so you're clear, as it's being done in other contracts, is a one-time award. It is not something that's an increase, that they get as a base pay from then on.
It doesn't
It's
increase
just,
their base salary.
You
it's
get $700
bonus.
this year, it's your bonus. And it's decided on a year-by-year basis.
And that's acceptable too. I mean, I have no problem with that concept with merit, along with a limitation on stepping, step plus increases.
Got it.
Yeah, I think we're.
Well,
agreeing.
I think we're kind of talking the same thing. Basically, we're saying we want to move towards more of a merit pay system.
Clearly
Well, no,
defined
if the merit
opportunities.
is only a one-time thing, that means that I was really good this year and I got a merit. I've got to be really good next year in order to get that. And that, I have no problem with that ongoing while, okay.
Budget-wise, it's going to be
Annual?
interesting.
Is it
Well,
one
yeah,
time?
To put the money in the budget for the superintendent and
Well,
the school
since
board
this
to
is a
award merits is going to be
recommendation, let them hash
interesting.
that out.
Let's talk,
Yeah, I think they're trying to.
Okay,
come up with
clearly
language.
defined opportunities for merit compensation.
So
Okay.
where would that go, Sandy?
as a part of this sentence.
This sentence,
Yeah,
Yes,
adequate,
just add that to that.
along with.
along
clearly-
with clearly defined opportunities for merit compensation.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
I'll get that from you afterwards if we
Sure.
agree.
okay. So at this point, it seems like we've been through it all. We've added a couple of
Yeah.
phrases. Are we in agreement with it as amended? There's a motion on the floor. Is it time to call for a vote?
I think so. Oh, I'm looking at them.
Would you read the whole thing for me one more time? I'm sorry, it's a 3-paragraph.
Well, it isn't at this point because I don't have all the changes.
Great.
Uh-oh. Well, Charlie's got them all
Dear
up here.
school board members, the Budget Committee understands that contract negotiations are in the purview of the school board. However, the Budget Committee is charged by law with preparing and presenting the budget and voting on all money issues. These votes to recommend or not recommend appear on the ballot. Insurance costs have substantial budgetary impact. We feel that the insurance apportionment should,
I'll read you that line because I
Okay.
wrote it.
Just give
Okay.
it that.
We feel that an insurance apportionment increase of 5% per year within the life of the contract, and bringing district contribution to 75% and 25% employee contribution, which brings parity with other public employees, is in line with employee offerings and attuned to taxpayer reportability.
I like that. The
That's
one
fine.
thing I'd like to say is the the employee insurance contribution, 5% increase
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Per year.
per year. Okay. And then as regards any pay raises contained in this contract, an ongoing step plus a percentage is excessive. We feel that 1 step per year over the life of the contract is fair and adequate.
Along with clearly defined opportunities for merit compensation.
Okay.
Perfect.
It is highly unlikely that the Budget Committee would approve contracts without these considerations.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So at this point, all in favor? And that's unanimous. We have one abstention for Cheryl. And Larry, are you voting on this?
No, I'm going to abstain.
Yes.
Okay, so we have 2 abstentions, Larry and Cheryl.
Cheryl recused herself,
She doesn't get to vote, abstain or anything. Okay, 1 recusal. Thank you for the correction. Okay, we have another thing, which is the fund review and recommendations. Michelle, you did such a great job when I attended the Finance Committee of briefly explaining these funds that I'd appreciate it if you could just give a quick review of them.
Sure, I'd be happy to. You have a packet of information that was handed out this evening, and I'll direct you to that. There's actually several documents included in that. I'm going to ask you to go past the first 2 pages for a minute and look at the group of documents. There's 2 pieces that are stapled together that look like a chart. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
Yep.
So I want to walk through the different types of funds that are on this chart. What I did was I reached out to Attorney Goro and asked for some clarification of the different types of funds that are available for the school board to consider and the budget committee to consider in the budgeting process that provide some flexibility for setting funds aside for specific purposes. And so I'll walk through the types of funds that you have here and the understanding of what they're for and how they were created. So you have, the first one is the Facilities Use Revolving Fund, and that is a fund that was established in 2007 and modified in 2015, and it's to contain the revenue that's generated by renting out the facility. That rental fee is driven by board policy, so it can be reviewed and modified from time to time, but the income from renting the facilities goes specifically into this fund. The fund was initially established through a warrant article. Additional revenue goes into the fund as it's received, so it automatically goes in. There's no process for increasing this fund. It's a sort of like like the language says, a revolving revenue fund. And withdrawals are made from the fund based on the expenditures that are determined to be supported by those revenues. So there's no additional process other than a vote of the school board to disperse the funds. The next two, the first one on this page is a special education fund, and the one behind that on the top of the next page is a capital improvement and maintenance capital reserve fund. Those two are similar in nature in the way they function, but different in the types of expenses that that are governed by those funds. So the first one, the special education fund, was established in 1996. It was established by a warrant article, and I believe you have a copy in your packet of the warrant article that approved the creation of that and the language for that. Increases to that fund can only be done through a warrant article. So they have to be on the warrant and approved by a vote of the community. The way the fund is worded has a little bit of flexibility, but it's not the type of thing that the board or the budget committee could recommend simply adding to those funds at the end of a fiscal year or at any other time. The withdrawals from those funds can be made at any time by the school board, a majority vote of the school board. The language creating this special education fund also named the board as agent to expend. So as long as the expenditure meets the criteria for which the fund was designed, then the board, by a majority vote, can withdraw those funds for that purpose. This particular fund is managed by the trustee of trust funds, so it's held by that group, and the board would need to request funds to be dispersed from that.
And then the public hearing is required in order to expend.
Thank you. Yes, it's also a condition for a public hearing in this particular case.
Now, I got a note today that the fund balance is actually higher than was stated last week. I think I was told it's 232,000 right now. Do you have that number? We were told last week it was 195,000,
Yeah,
which caused some
I don't have it off
consternation.
the top of my head, but we are reporting that on a monthly basis. We'll be reporting the fund balances to the Finance Committee, the subcommittee of the board, so that information will become regularly available.
Okay, thank you.
The next fund is the Capital Improvement and Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund, and that was established in 2016. It was in part established by dissolving a fund that was similar in nature. And this actually, you have that language in your packet as well. This fund was created by a transfer from that other account. And this is to cover the care and upkeep and improvement of school district facilities. The fund was approved by warrant article. Additions and increases to the fund can only be made by a vote of the community on a warrant article, so same as the special education fund. The board has again been named as agent to expend these funds. Disbursements can be made at any time with a majority vote of the board. Although it would be best practice to have a hearing, I'm not 100% clear that it's required to have a hearing to disperse these funds. And there may be a different requirement for special education. I'm not sure on that. And again, these funds are managed by the trustee of trust funds in terms of their investment.
So all three of these, basically, you can't do anything about. It's got to be a warrant article.
To add money into them.
Okay.
And the last one is a little bit of a different animal. There is language that allows the school district to retain a portion of the fund balance And this was voted here in 2014, approved by warrant article. It allows, with the vote of the school board, the opportunity for the board to put aside up to 2.5% of the net assessment to be retained from 1 year to the next. The use of those funds is sort of twofold. How the funds are kind of used or withdrawn from that, it's been for two purposes. One, it can be used for emergency funds, and in order to be used for that purpose, it must meet a specific definition, and that is in the letter from Attorney Goro. She clarifies what that definition is. So I'm not going to go into detail on that, but you're free to read her letters, which give more information on the criteria for meeting the definition of an emergency. Additionally, if something is deemed to be an emergency and these funds had previously been put aside and the school board wished to access them, then in addition to meeting that criteria, you have to go through a process with the state to get approval to use the funds, and you first and foremost must have used 100% of your appropriations for that year. So the likelihood of really accessing those funds, it would be in a catastrophic event. You know, that if you were 100%, the school board 100% expended the appropriations, and then this would be an avenue that could be pursued. The second purpose for this is to carry funds from 1 year to the next, and they can then subsequently be used to offset the tax rate in a subsequent year. Funds that are put in retained earnings or retention account for the fund balance automatically expire the next year, but the school board can then vote to withhold up to 2.5% of the new calculation of the net assessment at that point. So I know that was a lot to digest, but I hope that
I don't think I understood the last part, the very last thing.
So unlike the town, so this was when this language came forward to the legislature, it was intended to provide some assistance to the school districts, that some tools that are currently available to the town, and it kind of fell a little short of doing that. The town is able to retain fund balance from year to year, and then they determine during the tax rate setting how much of that fund balance they want to use to help mitigate any tax impact. This doesn't really do that because the town can carry that from year to year to year to year. The school board can establish, like if the board is going to meet on the 24th, and this is one of the things that they're going to consider, whether or not they want to set aside a portion of the fund balance from this last year that just ended and carry it over. If they do that, it's a one and done. They can reserve it, and the following year it's released.
Ah, that's what I didn't, quite sure.
Now,
okay.
So that happens every year.
Every year, okay.
But it does not accumulate. It's capped at that 2.5%.
Okay, that's what I was.
Yeah, so it's a little tricky.
clear on. Yes,
It doesn't
okay.
quite
Okay.
give the strength of the tool that the town has to
Yeah.
address, kind of smoothing out that tax impact, but it does provide some benefit in that regard. Yes.
Interesting. Interesting.
Question, I'm looking at the printout of the special ed expendable trust and the facilities, and I'm looking at these interest rates.
Where are you, Jim?
Where are you?
Where are you?
One's number page 71, at the back of the packet,
Yeah,
there are the balances.
okay.
I am amazed, I don't know who is doing the investing, however, I spent many years as a trustee of the trust funds. We're looking at a 0.015% interest rate. I mean, $206,000 should be making more than $351 a year in interest. I looked at that, and it was kind of staggering.
That is really out of our purview.
Well, yeah,
Okay, so is everybody clear on the differences? The only one that we are going to be recommending tonight for the school board, who will then decide, they'll take our advice maybe or maybe not, but we're going to be recommending what we think they ought to do with this fourth fund option. And I wonder what thoughts anybody has on this.
You raised your hand. You wanna go?
Did you raise your hand?
Yeah, you
Yes,
did. I was going
okay.
to stop talking.
Madam Chair. We would be withholding, the district would be holding money that would not go to offset taxes, and yet would be very difficult to access. I would suggest that if we were a large municipality or a city, it would make sense because you have the potential flux and influx. In a school district the size of Sanborn, maintaining that kind of money, I mean, it's 2.5% of it just, quite frankly, I believe that should go back to offset taxes. And if a contingency fund wishes to be established like the other capital reserve funds, that can be brought in through a warrant article. But I would suggest that the school board not arbitrarily decide, you know, we're going to hold on to this money. They did it once a couple of years ago. It did not go over terribly well. And I wouldn't suggest doing it again without voter approval.
Okay. Yes, Jack.
I just have a question, I guess I'm lost. What is net assessment? It says 2.5% of the net assessment.
It's a very good question. So I did reach out to the Department of Revenue for clarification on that because I didn't want to make any assumptions as to how that was calculated. And it's the amount raised in taxes from the prior year less the grant, which is the adequacy grant. So, and I just received this today, so the amount I'm looking at, well, now the amount for this year's calculation would be based on approximately 24 million.
So it's around 600,000 would be the cap.
That's my
Correct.
question.
Yeah,
So 2.5% is around 600,000?
roughly.
Yeah, roughly.
And that changes, obviously, that calculation changes from year to year.
Yeah. But that's the cap. It could be
That's
less.
the cap,
Whatever.
right?
Yeah,
Could be.
yeah.
Well,
Does anybody have any other comments? Jack, did you have anything?
That's it, I'm fine with that.
Mary? Sandy? Well,
this answered a lot of questions that I had, because I was very concerned about this money floating around. I hear what Jim says about the concerns, but I think the more checks and balances you have, the better. This makes me feel very comfortable that it's only there for a year, it's going back, and it gets looked at every year. And it takes the school board and the budget committee approval to get the money out. I really don't have a problem. I think 600 is excessive, but that's something you guys, you know.
well, okay.
Other than that.
Cheryl, you're not recused
yeah,
on
you're
this
not
one.
out of this one.
I'm having a hard time understanding the legalese here on how this money can be spent. It says, Michelle, you said it must meet specific definitions.
If you look, if I
I'm not sure if
if
I'm
you look
looking
at the
right.
letter dated October 16th,
Yep,
the third paragraph down, it says the retained amount can also be used as a revenue source for emergency expenditures. And then it goes on to define that process and emergency expenditures. There's a specific RSA that defines the criteria for that.
And it's only after the entire budget is spent.
Correct.
the entire budget or so you said the appropriation,
the
so
full
not the appropriation
appropriations.
for that particular.
No, if your appropriation is 34 million, your 34 million has to be expended before you can, that's my understanding.
But that's really moving money from pocket to pocket, but
Right.
it's a mess, I understand.
So my feeling, I've been able to sit with this a little bit longer than most of you because I went to the finance committee and heard this yesterday, the finance subcommittee of the school board. And my feeling is that I fail to see the benefit of it. It seems to me that we already know that we have a pad in our budget, which is about 3.5%. That is the money that's always left over in unreserved funds at the end of the year. And the goal, I think, that's been expressed by the superintendent is to shift and to try and build a reserve in lieu of that. So I have kind of two thoughts. One is if the school board were to decide to retain a portion of this potential 600,000, if they were to decide to retain a portion, say a couple 100,000, or 50,000, or whatever number it is, that they seek then to find the money that's in the budget to kind of pare it down, because you're kind of giving another pad instead of this one. My other comment is I would far rather see a warrant article next March establishing something with these parameters which can be built and kept and grow, and would have still the same spending parameters than to have this, and also to have it come out of the budget. For instance, last week when we met, I pointed out that there's about $130,000 in the custodial amount that I'd like to know whether they really need. Is that an emergency money? I mean, why is that always unspent? Why is that money always available to be used for line item transfers? And I know Michelle has said that she's going to take a look at that to see where the money really belongs. But, you know, there's $130,000 roughly left over. If you want to retain some of this, then take it out of that, is just my feeling of what would be fair for the taxpayers who are paying the bills. Yes?
In years past, when we created all those other capital reserve funds, we always funded them out of the unreserved fund balance at the end of the year. And there's actually, if you put all four in at one time, the first one, the one that's voted item number 2 on the ballot, that gets the first crack at any leftover money. And you actually have to pay attention to the order, because that determines how they get funded. Should you only have limited unreserved fund balance. Mm-hmm. That to me makes a lot more sense than, well, we have this amount that is that we know we traditionally have leftover as unreserved fund balance from year to year. Why don't we just hold on to a couple $100,000 more from this year that we're going to have to give back next year?
Or vote to do again.
Yeah.
If it's left over again.
Right.
I saw you cringe when I said a pad.
You did see that.
Yeah, I did.
We didn't pad.
But the thing is, the superintendent has also said that he would like to see, instead of having always this extra, he'd like to have a tighter budget with a reserve. Mm-hmm. And all I'm doing is arguing, if you're going to start establishing a reserve, start moving towards tightening up the budget a little. That's all. Yeah. They need to go hand in hand, in my opinion. Yeah, Cheryl, I'm sorry, I missed your hand. Yes.
Okay. So the money, does this fund build up from year to year?
No.
No.
So if you don't spend the money, it goes back.
If the money's not utilized, it goes back in the tax calculation the subsequent year, and the board also has the opportunity to reserve based on the new calculation.
Right. So if, for example, a couple of years ago we had roof cave-in, and we needed to fix that, but it wasn't the end of the fiscal year. So would we have been able to use money in a fund like this, because we had not yet spent the full appropriation for the fiscal year?
My understanding is not that particular money. However, if you knew that you were going to be having a significant expenditure coming up in the next year, and you could look at utilizing some of these funds to help mitigate the tax impact in the subsequent year, then this might be an avenue to consider retaining some of those funds if it's not going to have a negative impact on the current tax year setting. So it's just another tool in terms of looking at that.
So we don't really have a fund that would address something like that? You know, the boiler blows up.
The closest fund that you have for that type of thing is the capital improvement fund, and the way that's been redesigned, I think it would meet that need. The reserve funds are a great tool and allow you that flexibility to address unforeseen expenditures, but they have to be established by a warrant article. They have to be funded through a warrant article, and then they can be expended based on the need if you meet the definition. So the crafting, the language that you use to craft a reserve fund needs to be, you know, thoughtful in that process to make sure you don't tie your hands when you really need the funds in an emergency situation, but that they're restrictive enough that it's not just for any item, right?
Yes.
I think I'm guessing what the legislature wanted to do here is to allow the districts, the voters, taxpayers to keep a handle on this from year to year. And I think it works because you have to look at it every year. It goes back to if it's not expended, and you do it again. Michelle's right. If you start these special funds, being a lawyer, you'd have to write these things. I don't even know how you'd ever write one to make it restrictive or not, so it doesn't become what I call the devil's playground, that there's $1 million sitting there. How do we get into it? And that is my fear, is that we build up these this so-called restricted capital reserve for quote-unquote emergencies, and it starts burning a hole in pockets, and it doesn't get, and somebody finds a way to invade it. So I like it. I think it works all right. It works fine. What's the legislation did for us? It's good.
Yes, Jim?
I look at the capital reserve funds that we have already established, and I believe they covered the three biggest areas of concern for future catastrophic impact on the budget. And I would rather see us, rather than withholding this money, I would recommend to the school board that they not possibly anger any taxpayers, because it will affect the tax bill in the fall. And then maybe have slightly happier taxpayers when it comes to March, when we see warrant articles to add to the pre-existing capital reserve funds.
Out of unspent reserves, not additional appropriations, but out of any unspent reserves at the end of the year. Would be
I agree with that, but I was just saying, if they were going to do this.
Yeah. This came up when I was a board member, and you're getting the same argument now.
Okay. Sandy, I'm sorry, Michelle, just
Well, and we do want the contracts to pass. We want the negotiations to happen.
Well, now, one thing I've been advised that I need to say, and so I need to say this to you, is that you feel that way.
Yes.
I may feel that way. As a budget committee, we haven't voted on that.
Correct.
So
Yes.
need to be very careful about that.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Michelle had something in. Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of follow up on Jim's comment about the tax impact. I've not yet done that calculation to see what the anticipated tax rate would be. I just received this information really at 4 o'clock today, so you're getting it sort of hot off the press. But that is one of the things that I'm going to look at when we discuss this with the board on the 24th, you know, what the anticipated tax rate would be based on the MS-24 that will be submitted, and what impact, if any, there would be to the tax rate, you know, at the different sort of thresholds if they were to consider retaining any of that. So that would be part of the conversation.
I wanted to. Oh, I'm sorry, Jack.
That's
Yes,
okay. No,
you had your hand up.
I just want quick for clarity. Again, we're talking about that reserve fund. Cheryl asked if it could have been used for the roof. If the roof collapsed during the school year, could it be used? Is that what the emergency? I mean, if I look at the emergency
We
expenditures.
spent all 34 million.
The capital improvement fund, it would meet that criteria. So if there were funds available in that fund, yes.
Okay.
The fund balance retained fund, I would venture to say no, because I think you're welcome to read the attorney's letter, dated October
I know,
16th,
I
and see.
already read it, it's still, yeah.
Yeah, my understanding is that those funds only become available after all other appropriations have been exhausted for that specific purpose.
So I'm wondering if anybody wants to make a motion? Yes.
I will move that we recommend to the school board that they not utilize this, I was gonna call it encumbrance.
The unreserved
Right.
funds from the year end.
It's called the retained fund balance.
Retained fund
Retained
balance.
fund balance.
Thank you. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Sandy seconded. Is there further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Opposed?
I'm going to recluse myself on this one.
What?
I'm going to recluse myself on this one.
Okay. Abstain?
All right, so
Okay, Cheryl, did you vote?
he did.
I'm sorry, I didn't see your.
Okay, no
Okay, so long as Mary got it. So that would be one recusal from Larry, 6 in favor, and 1 abstention.
With names?
Oh, yeah, okay, so, okay, thank you. So the abstention is Cheryl Gannon, and then, okay.
Recuse is Larry.
And recused was Larry, yeah. Thank you. Okay, so we finished with that. Review previously requested information for current and past budgets. It's coming in, we're getting it, it's in the drive. When I see it in the drive, I'm sharing it with everybody so that you can find it there. When we get to the end of October and we've got it, I'm going to go through it with Michelle and pick out what documents, in my opinion, need to be printed. If you know of one that you absolutely want, please make sure that I know what you want it printed. And just for everybody's information, I'm having 8 copies printed of everything because I don't want to have this person says this, but this person's not, and da-da-da. You know, it's going to be the same for everybody. We've all got it available in print. We've all got it available online. Use what works for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anything further anybody has to say about that review?
Did you just add to the original document? Is that what, or did you put more documents in?
I haven't put any documents in. Michelle put a couple in the last 2 days, and I did that. I also noted on your question on there, whose was it? It is answered in the Q&A form that's there. It was Michelle's from this week. That document that you would put a question on in the Google Drive, in the Team Drive. So I did that today.
Yes, okay.
Okay, we are ready for public comment.
Jim Baker, Newton. I just want to address Jim's comment about the savings rate on that, those reserved funds. That 1 point whatever percent it is that's a standard savings account rate. To get higher rates, you know, without a CD, without locking in the money. Right now, the bank rates are incredibly low. To get more, you'd have to have an online account, and you could get maybe another %.
And that was 2015-16 are the numbers that we're looking at, but yes.
There is a bank branch in
You know what it is?
last time I checked, it was
Okay.
2.015.
Okay, so it's something, okay.
Yeah.
But is there anything further that you had?
No, just you could get about 2% with an online account.
Okay.
With no locking.
Is there any further public comment?
Pam Brown, Newton. I appreciated all your comments regarding our contract negotiations. Just wanted to let you know that in our current contract, We do have Article 15.1, preparation and years of professional experience before entering the district shall be evaluated by the superintendent of schools and the school board, and shall serve as the basis for placing an incoming professional staff member on an appropriate track and step. So we have that flexibility, and I hope we retain that provision. Also, we do not have to advance people a step if we feel their performance falls below the standard we expect of them. But they can, that would also trigger a grievance, which may cost more in terms of time and money than just putting them on a PIP and giving them the step. Also, I like what Oyster River has in their document for a bonus for outstanding performance, but it is a little bit vague in the wording here. A professional may be judged eligible by the school board for additional financial reward based upon outstanding performance. Such rewards may be given, and again, may is in this passage, in the form of a bonus for outstanding performance at the completion of the school year. Candidates for an additional financial reward may be identified by the school board, an administrator or professional, to include a recommendation in sealed envelopes given directly to the superintendent. Determination of the recipients is the responsibility of the school board, and the recipients will be of these financial rewards shall be publicly acknowledged. Again, there are no criteria defined here, so you worry about, you know, favoritism and so forth, but I like at least the start of this wording. So this is something I did mention to our superintendent as we go into negotiations. Also, our school board meeting next week, we'll be talking about the grading we use, the grading system, and I believe Mr. Stack will discuss class sizes in the high school next week, and that'll be on the agenda as well. Our current board chair will be out of town, so I believe we have a substitute board chair next week.
Hello, Tammy Mahoney from Kingston. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for all their hard work and conscientiously deliberating on all these really important topics. I did take a couple of notes that I just wanted to mention. You had spoken about a voucher system as opposed to the stipend. And there was some discussion about the balance between a stipend of a certain amount and versus what the difficulty or the extra cost or the lack of efficiency might be in implementing a voucher system. So I guess I wanted to mention that the simplicity of an employee being able to go online and enter their information is only part of the equation. The lack of efficiency is really on the administrative side. And since you have the business administrator here, I don't know if she wanted to comment on how much
you really can't ask her
administrative effort that might take in terms of cutting all those checks and reviewing all that information. That's where I would myself see the decrease in efficiency. And I don't know if that would offset, but it would be worth investigating that, I would think. And I also wanted to mention, I share Mrs. Osterloh's concern on the being competitive in terms of not just within our own district, but we don't work in a vacuum. We have teachers that have all kinds of opportunities to go to other districts. And it's I think, very important to keep in mind that if our steps are far, sufficiently below, which to my understanding they are, other districts in the area, Mr. Swayze had mentioned Bedford, and I just want a food for thought, because I personally can tell you that my son attended here. At least 3 teachers that I know of, 2 that he had personally, that he thought were excellent teachers, have left. And I don't know if I believe they both went to Bedford. The third one I know did, so, doesn't really matter what district they're going to. They left here specifically because they could get a $10,000 increase just by going to another district. And they were excellent teachers. He took trips with both of them. They were willing to go above and beyond their actual teaching duties to chaperone other trips. And I just want you to keep in mind that it's really important for us to retain experienced, dedicated teachers. And I think in order to do that, we need to make sure, maybe we need to be very flexible about it in terms of, tweaking some of the insurance, benefits. But I really think we need to keep that in mind. That's incredibly important. And it's the cost of there is a cost to the district of having these teachers leave. So just thank you.
Thank you. You're only supposed to do one, but we'll make an exception since you have the burden of having to chair the meeting next week.
To continue on, but I had forgotten to mention something else. We see teachers leaving and receiving more money at other districts. However, the pupil to teacher ratio is higher in these other districts. So we always indicate to our teachers, well, your pay is lower, but you have a lower pupils to teacher ratio. However, the fact that they are voting with their feet to move to other districts with a slightly higher pupils to teacher ratio and earn quite a bit more tells us that despite what we hear at our board meetings about how this will hurt the children, I think the teachers are telling us something, that they're able to handle a few more students or a couple of more students per class section, and they're willing to do that for compensation that allows them to be compensated for those skills. So I think it's just something to think about. Thank you.
Committee comment. Yes.
I would like to thank all of you for the information I got. In case you were wondering, that's how much I got. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry, for asking and listening to what we had to say.
Want to say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is a change, a real change. The school board has listened.
We've got to.
Whatever you do with it, at least has listened. And I for one, appreciate it.
We have to.
Cheryl, do you have any comment?
I believe Jim had his hand raised?
Well, I was going around the table, so.
Oh, okay. Yes, this is a comment. So I don't expect debate or discussion. It's my opinion for the cameras. The minutes of meetings of a public body such as ours are legal document. It's our responsibility as a committee to, as much as possible, ensure that they're accurate. Minutes are a significant manner in which the taxpayers learn about what happens at these meetings so they can become informed and make good decisions when they vote. As a member of this committee, I feel it's my responsibility to do my due diligence to correct inaccuracies. I agree that I should not be changing what people say, but it's very disturbing that people can make inaccurate statements without being challenged. So that's my issue, and I need to deal with that and realize that people do say opinions and they may not always be accurate. Tonight, however, I pointed out an inaccuracy in the minutes in regards to the amount of time that was spent on a discussion. I watched the video, I recorded the timestamp, and essentially I was told that I was lying, even though I did my due diligence and I brought my evidence forth here. That was refuted with no counter evidence. I expect, to change the rules. This is another issue, that changing the rules at a meeting to serve your own purposes, I feel is inappropriate. I've been on this committee for 8 years. I have watched school board meetings, attended, and watched videos for the past 20 years. And I have never seen an instance in which the minutes, suggested changes, needed a motion and a second. Those suggestions were brought up in a friendly manner, and people debated, and they decided whether or not certain changes should be made. In fact, I've witnessed on the school board some members bringing a full page of suggested changes to the minutes. And those were accepted and those were debated. There was no need for a formal motion or a second or a vote. So that, to me, is an abuse of power, that someone would change the rules for their own purposes because they don't want to discuss something. The minutes should not also have editorial remarks and characterizations, derogatory characterizations, such as spending sprees and sales jobs. The minutes are to be objective, and things like padding, which our business administrator brought up today. I think those comments should be retained to personal opinions and should not be certainly put in the minutes that the committee members agreed on remarks like that when there was no formal vote taken. Again, people can have their opinions, and I think that's fine, as long as they're stating that that's their opinion, and those do not get recorded in the minutes as being agreed upon by the committee. Thank you.
Carlton?
No, I don't have anything to say.
Okay. Sandy? Nope. Here. Check. You have any comment?
No, I'm upset.
Jim?
Just a very brief one. When we were discussing travel versus vouchers, I honestly would suggest we utilize and are willing to supply a copy.
I'm sorry, I can't hear
We
you.
can't hear you.
Oh, when we discuss the difference between travel, travel stipends and vouchers, I suggest that we recommend to the school board the adoption, and I will supply a copy of Newton's travel expense report, which could be filled out once a month and submitted to the SAU. It's very simple. Then all the documentation stays together, and unless there's something bizarre happening in the school district, most of our people should be in their buildings on a daily basis. With the travel should be the exception rather than the rule, and therefore it should be easy to maintain. A year ago, the superintendent informed us that this year he was going to review it, he was going to get a handle on it. Hopefully soon, within the stuff regarding last year, we are going to get some sort of a detailed report from the superintendent saying, this is what I found, because if you remember last year, I was rather unhappy, and I said, we'll want to heed that doesn't come forward with some sort of way of correcting.
Okay. Something I remember Mr. Ambrose saying that they're doing, and Michelle, I believe this is correct, is that they couldn't get a handle on it because it was all over the place. What instead that our business administrator has done is to establish a new line item that is travel for the budget for future tracking, but it was a mess the way it was done in the past, and they couldn't get to it. Is that accurate?
If I could comment, the information would be exorbitantly time-consuming to compile, so there was a cost-benefit issue with gathering that. So to address the question and the concern, rather than looking retrospectively, we proactively developed a new code that the mileage reimbursement, just those costs that are mileage rate times the miles, those expenses are in a new object code that then we can report on. So going forward, we can gather information about that in a much more efficient manner.
Yes.
Do you mind if I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there some sort of documentation that people have to submit in order to expend money from that code?
Perhaps my explanation wasn't clear. So when somebody submits for mileage reimbursement, if they're reimbursement request is, I traveled from here to Concord for a meeting in Concord, and here's how many miles I traveled times the IRS mileage rate. That payment to the employee as mileage reimbursement will be categorized in that expenditure code. So people don't access the code. We're tracking those expenditures in a way that will allow us to report on them.
Just one final question. All reimbursement requests, this is why I have a problem with stipend. All money that is spent for travel is going through, requires that they submit a piece of paper that says, on Monday I traveled from here to Concord, on Tuesday I traveled from here to Portsmouth, on Wednesday I traveled from here to Memorial.
So again, let me try to clarify. I want to make sure we're not mixing apples and oranges. Mileage reimbursement, which is strictly governed by the IRS, meaning you have to submit your travel documentation saying how many miles you traveled, from where to where, on what date, and we request what purpose. When that is submitted, we're tracking it in that new code. That has nothing to do with a mileage stipend that does not require that form of documentation. Okay.
But anything that is, I misspoke, anything that is not specifically an administrative, only administrators get that stipend. All other district personnel is filling out an actual form.
Which they had been doing before as well. So that part of it hasn't changed. What changed is that we pulled that piece of the expense out going forward, and we said, okay, now instead of recording that with the fact that there were other expenditures, maybe, for travel, that, you had to get an Uber, you had to rent a car, or whatever it is. Now, any expense that's related to travel is segregated from mileage reimbursement. And mileage reimbursement is in its own little category. There'll be a bazillion accounts with that object, because if you're in special ed and you're getting mileage reimbursement, it's going to be in a special ed function, because we have to report that way in the DOE 25. If it's, a regular ed teacher and they're driving somewhere for a conference, it'll be in the regular ed function. So, every new account that needed to be established to track that is being, either has been set up or is being set up to accommodate that.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for your participation and really digging in together on this. I think it was great. I would like to ask briefly how you want to treat minutes going forward. We did used to do originally, if the minutes were distributed, if anybody had any changes, you got them back to me. I would then give a copy of those proposed changes to everybody, and in one document, so that you could look at it, so we didn't have to spend, whether it was 20 minutes or 45 minutes or 3 hours, going through and parsing it, but we could simply all know what it is, discuss it very quickly in the public eye, not a violation of right to know, because it would not be going back and forth with people. You just give it to me and I get it back to you. Would that work for everyone, to go back to that way of doing things? Not using Google Docs with, which to me is where we get into a potential right to know problem. Would that work for everyone? It used to work in the past.
I thought we changed it because of the right to know. The right to know said we needed to.
changed
because it switched to Google Docs and everybody was adding comments to something, and it was constituting an online meeting.
Right. So what I'm suggesting
I
is
never did that. I just what you just said, Annie. I would send you my
That's what you used to-
suggestions. Yes.
before Google Docs, right?
And after Google Docs. I never did it
fine.
on Google Docs. No.
But Google Docs, I think, is where we run into the right to know problem.
Right.
And I think if we don't use Google Docs and we go back to the old way,
Email.
if you have something, and then I can just get it out before the meeting to everyone, and we can be efficient and, and just move it forward and not get into an extended thing. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Our date for our proposed, getting all the budget detail from the administration that we'd asked for back in May is October 31st. I know Michelle has come to me today and said, will I please talk to Tom about that because it might be difficult. I don't know. This is what we all agreed to back then. I will tell them that, you know, they agreed to it and, you know, that this is what we're asking for and, you know, we'll see. If it isn't there, it isn't there, but, you know, I know our intent is to get this information so that when we have the meeting, we're prepared to be able to ask questions. Yeah, Michelle.
I was just going to add to that, that I don't know if there was a misunderstanding with this, but I'm pretty certain that the superintendent would want to provide the detail in the budget presentation to the board and the budget committee at that joint meeting, and would not be releasing anything prior to that time on the proposed budget, because it's going to be presented as part of the presentation. So, but I would encourage a conversation around that.
Okay, I know that the budget committee did ask for that and it was agreed to back in May. So, you know, if there's another thought about it, I guess I'll let you know what we're doing. I will say that he's not under obligation to give it to us because it's not a public document yet. It would be a favor to us if he would, but he's not under obligation. And if it's, you know, if it's something that he just isn't ready for or is uncomfortable for some reason, we're going to have to live with it. Yes.
We had agreed, and actually the budget committee since I've been on it, has requested that it not be presented the budget, the document, the night of, so that we're seeing something up there, trying to flip pages, we can at least
Review.
Have a preview.
have a chance to look through it. I mean, that presentation always ends with, are there any questions? And everybody sits there and they go,
I'm not ready.
yeah, you know, unless somebody caught something that was really egregious and stood out and they made a note.
And it is a night when all the administrators are there who can stand and answer some questions. So from an efficiency standpoint.
We were told that we would get it before.
Yes. I agree.
And yes, it's not a public document, but we are also not the public.
No, I understand.
And I would actually look at the school board, who has the authority to compel, if need be, and look at the superintendent and say, yeah, you're presenting it on Wednesday the 7th, which is actually a week later than I thought we were going to be.
No, it's Wednesday the 7th.
Yeah.
There's a school board meeting. It's the first Wednesday of the month for the school board. Yep.
Joint meeting.
It's a joint meeting.
Is that the joint meeting of their presentation?
It is.
Yes.
But it's possible for them to look at the superintendent and say, November 1st, it will be in people's hands.
Okay. So that's something, Larry, for you to take. I mean, you did vote for this May 30, you know, for this October 31st also. So, you know, yes, Cheryl.
Take it down.
Did we say that it didn't need to be the complete document, that there were certain things that we wanted, but that if it wasn't complete, that we would accept it? I thought we had discussed something like that.
I could speak to that. I'm not 100% certain with respect to your question, but until all the pieces are together and the superintendent's accepted and approved a bottom line, it's not complete. Anything can change. And the presentation there's a series of meetings and a process that was adopted for reviewing the budget, and it starts with the presentation. So that's not an in-depth question answer. That's here's what we're starting with, and giving you sort of the information about what it contains. And then there are subsequent meetings from that to really delve into the meat of it and the questions that folks might have. And I think we adopted that process last year, and it seemed to work. But
Right. Well, and this is just something that, you know, the budget committee went over, we approved, we agreed to, the school board, you know, knows our budget guideline and adopted it with their own, you know, particular parts of it. And you know, it seems to me that it's possible that the budget is still a moving target as, you know, as of that date, and that it isn't all put together. I mean, we don't want something that's premature, you know, or anything. I think that what we want is every effort that we would have the main budget components of what's going to be happening prior to that meeting, so that we're prepared to look at it and to kind of do that. So, you know, I'll be talking with Mr. Ambrose and see what we can work out. But I just wanted you all to know that, you know, they're finding some difficulty with this right now. We did make the request. We agreed to it months ago, and the school board also did. And it's a good point, Jim, that, you know, the school board did agree to that. So, you know, they can tell Mr. Ambrose this is what they'd like him to do, or they can change it. I mean, you know, they can do what they decide. The next scheduled meeting date is Wednesday, November 7th at 6 p.m. That is our joint meeting with the school board. And then remember that we'll be having another joint meeting after Thanksgiving on a Thursday night here with the school board for the Q&A. And that's it. May I have a
Motion to adjourn.
Wait a minute. Okay, motion to adjourn. The second was Jack?
No.
Yep, all in favor?
Yeah.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.